Quilty is brought to you by APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Clothworks, inspiring creativity with art on fabric. Hovels Sewing, when you need to cut it close, choose Hovels. B&B, our fabrics, your lifestyle. Quiltology, the urban quilt space.
Quilty.
If you want to make a quilt, you're going to have to rip some seams eventually. Today on the show, I'm going to show you how to take a seam out the proper way. Let's take a look. Hey everybody, welcome to Quilty. It's good to see you again back there in your computer somewhere. Hello. Today we are going to talk about seam ripping. Even if you are the most advanced quilter, you've been quilting for years and you love Quilty because, you know, it's just a great show and you watch for the basics anyway. Even if you're an advanced quilter, you're going to have to rip out a seam every once in a while. It happens to the best of us, and it certainly happens a lot when you're just starting out. And it's okay, there's no shame in that game, but there's a right way and a wrong way to rip a seam out. And so today I'm going to show you the reasons why you would rip a seam out and the proper way to do that. Okay, so let's take a look here. I've prepared these three examples of really wonky seams. Okay, so the first seam here is the wrong side has been sewn together. I was making this piece of patchwork and I put my right sides together, I thought, but in fact I should have sewn this pretty side to this side of the fabric, but instead somehow between the table and the sewing machine I reversed it and I sewed it incorrectly. I put these two sides together when really it should be the opposite. So I would need to take that seam out and do that one again. So that's one reason why I would need my seam ripper. Here's another example of why I would need my seam ripper. When you're making patchwork and you're making a quilt top like this, you want a 1/4 inch seam. We talk about a 1/4 inch seam all the time. Well, this seam, when I measure it, it is a little too deep. It's about 1/2 inch, and it just is too much of a seam allowance. It's going to throw off all my patchwork. So every once in a while, when you're making your quilts, measure your seam allowance. Make sure you're still at that good 1/4 inch seam. It's just a good habit to get into as you're making your quilt. Make sure you're still sewing a 1/4 inch seam at the beginning of your project, at the middle, and at the end. And this is way too deep. This is 1/2 inch. So I would want to pull that seam out. And this one, I had fun with this one. I was doing a little strip set here, you know, nice little strip set, and just basically ran off the rails. I don't know, maybe I was watching TV or, you know, having a martini. It was happy hour at my quilting, my sewing center. So that is not good. I would want to take that out. So what you'll need, of course, is a seam ripper, and this is a very basic tool. No sewing center or sewing area is complete without it. And it's got a little spike on the end. It's not too sharp. It's not razor sharp, but it's definitely sharp-ish. So you don't want to be throwing it around and tossing it willy-nilly. But this seam ripper, there's many different kinds, but they're all basically like it's sort of a two-pronged instrument here. And what you want to do when you're ripping a seam out, the easiest way to do it is to do every third stitch, about every third, every fourth. You can kind of you know, choose, you know, 3 or 4 every third or fourth stitch. It should be fine. And the reason that you do that is because it loosens the whole seam in a really clean way. And so then when you go to, I'm going to finish it up here, when you go to pull apart the seam, it comes apart really easily. If you pulled every stitch, if you snipped every stitch with your seam ripper, that would take forever. And if you only did every sixth or seventh, you'd have to really tug at your patchwork to get it to come apart, and you don't want to do that because fabric is strong, but it's also it's delicate and strong at the same time, you know, like your man, like your anyway, yeah, okay, you get what I'm saying. So it's strong, but it's delicate and you need to be careful with it. So when you rip every third stitch like that, you can, okay, I'm going to give it another one. If you have any kind of tug like that, you need to give it one more little pop, and then look at that. like butter. I'm telling you, it just comes apart like a feed sack. If you grew up on a farm, you might understand what I mean by a feed sack, like a stitched or a flour sack. Sometimes flour comes with like a stitched top, and you snip a few of those strings, rip it, and it comes apart. So that's how you rip a seam. And here, again, you'd go every third one. If you have any kind of tension, give it another little snip and just be gentle with it. And then one tip before we go today is that when you rip your seam, you have these little threads still stuck, right? And the back side of your seam is just that long piece, right? So that's easy to take off. But if you take a piece of tape and just kind of touch those threads on the back side, you'll get all those little stray threads really fast instead of like picking them out one by one. And then, of course, you can sew your seam correctly the next time. So that's the little lesson on seam ripping. There's a right way and a wrong way, so do it cleanly and you'll be happy and your patchwork will be happy. And join us on Facebook and Twitter and send us emails and send us suggestions for shows. We'd love all of it and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Quilty is brought to you by APQS, handcrafted quilting machines. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Clothworks, inspiring creativity with art on fabric. Hovels Sewing, when you need to cut it close, choose Hovels. E&B, our fabrics, your lifestyle. Quiltology, the urban quilt space.